I'm Jay Lazarus Huck.
And I'm Jamie Hall.
And we are Rising Fire Productions. Welcome to this week's episode of In Frame. Our guest this week is Daniel Martine, veteran of stage, screen, big and small, music stage.
Yeah.
You've done just about everything there is in performing. You've been a drummer, you've been a dancer, you've done Broadway, you've done major motion pictures, you've done television, you've done web, both as a webcaster and as a on-screen talent. So tell us a little bit about you that maybe people out there might not know.
Well, first of all, I was in one Broadway show, dancing. It was the last thing done by, I can't believe I'm forgetting his name. It'll come to me. But I did a lot of off-Broadway touring shows. And off-Broadway shows in New York City as an actor. And I've been doing, I guess I've been performing since I've been in high school band, and before that, played trumpet and drums. And then in my late teens, when I was in school, I started to, during the summers, do a lot of summer stock, which is how I got my equity card. And it took me 3 summers to get it, but it was worth every minute of it. It was great fun. We had to learn 7 shows in 9 weeks.
Wow, that's a lot.
Yeah, and we had to build the sets. It was a great. It was sort of like vaudeville, because you had to learn everything from the ground up. It was the best training I ever got. You build the sets. You either switched. You were either talent or you were a stage manager. You ran the lights, did the sound. Everybody helped build the set. Everybody struck the set. It was a tremendous opportunity for an education.
Great way to learn a little bit about every aspect of what it takes to put on a show like that too.
And let's face it, it was fun. And if you like girls, it was a great. It was a great place to meet girls who all wanted to be, stars. So all in all, it was a blast. I mean, maybe I had more fun during that period in my life than I probably ever had since.
Now, your father was a musician as well, wasn't he?
Both my parents were professional musicians. My mother was an opera singer, a lyric soprano. My father was a jazz trumpet player who played in a number of major big bands and Latin orchestras. They actually met at the Conservatory of Music in Cincinnati, where I was born, although I didn't live there. And they went on the road, and I grew up with my grandparents and my aunt went until they got off the road. And then they went back, got graduate degrees, and became music educators. So it's been in our family. All of us, to some degree, play one instrument or another. I have 2 sisters. They play, not anymore, but they did. So yes, it was sort of easy for me to gravitate to show business because of their.
That's what I was going to say. Coming from a background of artistic kind of people, I mean, it's very easy for you to catch on to that art bug and be able to go through it with, like your family did. You could come on through if you need to.
I like doing these live shows.
Well,
you never know what'll happen,
That's
especially
exactly
in a place
right.
like
You'll
Black
never know.
Lives,
I mean,
so.
I just met Jessica Neighbors or Jerica Neighbors. We've been friends on Facebook for years and met her today. So you never know who you're going to meet at Black Lodge. So
This is true. This is very true.
When was it the first time that you did an actual stage performance?
As an actor?
As an actor,
I
or
was,
as any kind of stage performance at the youngest age.
I've been playing. By the time I was in 8th grade, I had been playing. I had been playing in bands. I was in a little band. We weren't very good.
Most first little bands
we
aren't
weren't very
very
good. We were, all the other bands were playing. We were kind of hip for our time. Because I'm older than you guys. But this was in the late '60s, and my first band, we were playing really what we consider really hip stuff: Moody Blues, Cream, Hendrix, The Doors, and everybody else was playing other hits. The bubblegum hits, because that's what you heard at high school dances. So we were kind of odd.
Right.
We were kind of odd, and we
Well, you
weren't
have to
very
set
good,
your
but we were in there playing cool stuff anyway, psychedelic stuff. But the first time I was actually on stage as an actor, I was 15. I was doing. I had a small role in Annie Get Your Gun.
Okay.
There's no business like show. That song's from there.
Okay.
Yeah, Annie Get Your Gun, and then I later did. I played Conrad Birdie and Bye Bye Birdie.
Now, were these school productions?
Yeah, these were high school productions. Okay. And I actually reprised that one professionally on a tour.
What was your first professional show?
Wow. I guess I would have to say, well, we were actually being paid for the summer stock. But I guess my first professional show where I consider myself an equity actor was the original Broadway touring company of Jesus Christ Superstar, which was, and we played Memphis in 1974.
What role?
I was originally cast as Simon Zealots and Simon Peter, and then they went to go do the movie in Norman Jewison directed the movie. He cast Ted Neely, who was at that time doing Jesus
Right.
on the Road, and Carl Anderson, who had been doing Judas. They went to Israel, and then Jeff Fenholt, who had been doing it on Broadway, they closed the Broadway show, brought him over, and I'd been the understudy to Judas, and I became Judas, and my hair was like down to my waist. And we toured, our first tour was throughout the South.
Wow. And you said this was when?
74 wasn't really, the producer was, oh my God, I'm brains dead today. The Australian who owned the Bee Gees. My God, all
I
these
couldn't even tell
I was
you.
going to say, I should,
No, he was very
ashamed of
famous at
myself,
the
I
time.
should know
It'll
that,
come to me. But he produced the show, and he was Australian, and he told us at first when we were going to do the show, our first leg of the tour was down. He says, "We're going to be touring the show down south. Yeah, well, they're going to love you down there because they're very religious."
And this is true.
And we looked at him because we had blacks, gays, Asians, long hairs in the show. Our bus was painted. We had 2 tour buses and 2 big semis because you had to travel with your sound and lights
Right.
and staging back then. It wasn't. Now you travel with your staging, but sound and lights you rent at all the venues have them, and you just have to give them the light plot and stage plot, and they'll
So did
fix
you
it all up.
did you get good receptions with
No.
with that?
No, not down
That's kinda
south.
what
Our
I
first gig was
expected.
Richmond, Virginia, and Virginia, even though it's just south of D.C., Richmond is still Virginia. And as a matter of fact, I believe, if I'm not mistaken, Virginia also, they not to get political here, but aside from Texas, they kill more people with the death penalty than anybody except Texas. So that tells you all you
That's
need to
like the
know.
beginning of the Deep South right there.
No,
too.
and it's not. The
And
Deep
it's so
South,
and it's so far up.
That's what I'm
you
saying.
know,
it's the Mason-Dixon line.
It is.
But
It
the,
is.
But
But
the
you
thinking
would,
is they are South.
you know,
It is-
with
they
it
were-
being
they're
so
southern,
close
different
to
kind of
Washington,
southern.
You know.
Yeah, but then our next gig was Chattanooga, then Atlanta, then over to Nashville, Memphis, and then Jackson, Mississippi.
I'm interested. How did Memphis receive you?
Not well. Not well at all. We were picketed. We were picketed everywhere we got to. We got to New Orleans. New Orleans was the first place we got any
Well,
love
that,
at all.
that show at that time in a lot of places was controversial at
yeah,
best.
it was
Not quite like it was in the
stereotype.
South.
But I was going to say,
I'm telling you, it really
wonder-
wasn't. And I can remember we actually one of the, and I don't remember. It was at the old what was in the auditorium, Ellis Auditorium. I guess where the Cannon Center is now.
Okay.
That's where we were. That's where we were. And I don't. Of course, I barely remember that because it was so many years ago. But I remember we were. They didn't like us. I mean, we were picketed, and I remember the cast of there. There was a group here in town. I don't remember who they were. I think I met some of them years later when I moved here. They were from Hair. They had done a version of Hair, and they got arrested because they did the nude scene in Hair, and they came to see us, and we met them, sort of like a solidarity kind of thing.
Right.
It was odd, and Jackson, Mississippi was worse. Oh my God.
Oh, I mean, it's
You have no
Jackson,
idea,
Mississippi,
guys.
still backwards.
Yeah, I mean, it's hard to explain unless you're old enough to remember that. I mean,
Yeah.
Well,
I
I mean,
can-
in '74, you'd have been just 5-6 years past, not even 6 years, past the shooting of Dr. King.
5 years.
So,
6 years, yeah. I remember I was 16 when that happened, and Memphis burned, and a lot of other cities burned. It was.
So to come
it was
down here with
We were scared.
blacks and gays
Gays
and
and
hippies,
long
as it
hairs.
were,
We were
et
scared.
cetera.
I'm not afraid to tell you, we were scared, and we got followed. As a matter of fact, when we left Memphis, if I remember correctly, we crossed the border into Mississippi. Again, now I know where it is, like where you used to live, and you crossed the border into Mississippi. And once we got across the border there, we were met by a phalanx of Mississippi County sheriffs, and each county they handed us off to a new one, and they all the way to Jackson. They wouldn't let us get off the road until we got
For,
to
Should
was
be
that
through
for
their
like
towns?
protection or
I'm
making
sure
sure,
that was
you
the
I
didn't
think that
stop?
was. Yeah, I
They
think
didn't
that's
want
what
them
they
in
were
the
telling
town.
us, but I
Yeah.
didn't buy it. I mean, they just.
Just making sure you wasn't stopping.
Yeah, that's right.
You're
So,
not-
in 1974, you're rolling through Memphis doing Jesus Christ Superstar. You get a small taste of what the South is like Years later, you're living in Memphis.
Mm-hmm.
When you came back, was it culture shock again?
It was culture shock because I lived for so many years in New York City. I've traveled around, different parts of the world. I lived in Los Angeles for a long time and then New Orleans before I came here. So it was a culture shock because I was used to more of a big city kind of attitude, a place where the arts, the arts culture is even more deeply ingrained than it is like New York. New York
Right.
is the center of the known universe. Whether you like New York or not, that's the fact. L.A. not quite as cultural if you look at it from.
LA is more the singular industry.
True, but there is a
Film and-
burgeoning.
film
I
and
lived there
music.
15 years. There is a burgeoning culture there. It's just, and a good strong arts culture there because there's a lot of money there. But it's not quite the depth and understanding.
Well, in
that
New York,
has.
like you said, in New York, that's the center of it.
It really
That's
is.
where so many cultures, so many
Well-
different styles of arts and everything
Yeah.
like that is New York.
It intersects there because
It
it's such a cosmopolitan city.
It-
Anything from fashion to music to film to stage to music.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, they exist in your other major cities, but like
but
you
not
said,
as
New York,
predominantly as
New
in
York
New
is that
York.
hub.
But let me say this. Let me say this about Memphis. When I was a kid in the '60s in high school, I've always loved the blues, and I listened to Motown like everybody else did. But I was a big Stax listener. I loved all the Stax art. Arthur Conley, Otis Redding. Oh my God! All these wonderful artists that were on. Booker T and the MGs, all these wonderful art. I love that blues, hard blues tinged soul that Stax put out, and it was the Memphis sound, and man, I dug it.
It was, I mean, with Stax, it was the
Right.
deep blues.
Yeah.
It was what I consider to be the real, the real blues of the Delta and everything like
Well,
that.
yes, there was that, but here you had a more soul-hearted, soul tinge to the blues. And I think that's what was the Memphis sound was all about. And since I've been here, there's no question that, especially in the music world here, there's an amazing amount of talented people.
Now,
Poverty breeds a certain amount
Yeah.
of expressionism.
Now,
Well, maybe.
With that being said about music, how do you feel about the film community in Memphis and how it's received, and what are some of your thoughts about the film community that we have here now in Memphis?
The film community, in my estimation, in Memphis is very vital, is very vibrant, very strong. And there's a lot of talented actors, directors, and people like that. Some production people that are very strong here. Yet, having said that, I think one of the main problems that exist here, that for instance don't exist in Nashville, is I think the first problem that I think we have here is that there's no real infrastructure to support the people who work in the business. And I think that leads to the next problem is that there is a lack of true professionalism by many of the people here. And the third thing here is it's difficult to actually work with good content here because writing, which everybody thinks they can do, is not done so well here. Writing is very difficult. It's, my
You
God,
also
I've been
have-
writing a long time, and I'm just now getting to the point where I feel proud of the projects that I write, but I spent a lot of years studying it, getting better at it, and I think those are the three major issues here. Talent, there's talent here.
It's also very hard here. I mean, you aren't wrong that the writing process is weak here. To
Writing is
some
an
at
art within
best.
itself.
But it is very hard to write certain content in this community because you have so many people who are so ingrained in the upbringing or the confinement of
What-
the upbringing
Right.
that there are so many subjects that they aren't willing to tackle.
Well,
so much dialogue they aren't willing to
I
deliver.
agree with that, but those are political and social issues. And you're going to find that in any community. Some are hipper than others. I mean, I don't find it that hip here. I agree with you on this. However, I'm speaking more at this point of the technical
The
aspects
qualities,
and
yeah.
the quality of the professionalism. I mean, every community. I mean, even in today's atmosphere, for instance, if I was to go into an LA green light exec at any studio in LA today, I could pitch Midnight Cowboy and it wouldn't get done. In 1968, it won the Academy Award for Best Film and was the only film ever to have won an Academy Award that was rated X. They no longer have the X rating. They have the, what is it?
NC-17.
Yeah, NC-17, which is similar to the X rating. But I could pitch Midnight Cowboy today with a gay hustler, a gay cowboy hustler with another crippled hustler in the mean streets of New York City, and they wouldn't do it. There would be, you know, all kinds of groups that, you know, the gays wouldn't like it, the hustlers wouldn't like it, the religious people wouldn't like it. So, I mean, the atmosphere has changed. And the atmosphere in Memphis is what it is. It
Right.
is, many people consider it the Bible of the buckle belt. I mean, the buckle of the Bible belt. Okay? And it probably is. However, again, that's not the issue I'm speaking of. I'm speaking to the professionalism and to the lack of infrastructure, which I think is the most serious issue
Right.
facing filmmakers today. Without the infrastructure, without really, really strong entertainment attorneys, without really strong producers, without good writing, without people who understand the business. I'm talking about distribution. Anybody nowadays, as we all know, the barrier of entry into filmmaking is cheap because it's digital. 20 years ago, you had to still pay for film. You had to rent Panavision or Arriflex cameras. You know, it wasn't easy, right? It wasn't easy to do that. Now, with software available to cut the film instead of the way that I learned how to do it on a Moviola, you know, and with the advent of all this technology, for like $20,000-$30,000, you can have a production company, right? That's not the issue, okay? That barrier of entry is lowered. But the barrier that still exists is the infrastructure and being very professional and understanding what good content is as opposed to what that content is not so good. You know, and you can go on YouTube and see 90% of all the stuff that's up there, or Vimeo or similar you know similar sites online, and see lots and lots of trash and 10% really good diamonds in the rough. And even then, those diamonds in the rough, because distribution right now is changed in filmmaking.
And
Well,
it
this-
changes
it-
constantly at this
And it's
point.
always, it's always changing with the markets that you have and the venues that you have. You know, like you said, Vimeo, YouTube, and so many kind of streaming things like,
Filmmaker, there's a lot of them.
yeah, like Amazon, Redbox, Netflix, and stuff like that. Distribution has done a big 180, you know, comparatively when you were solidly in the business, you know, where you had to go to a distribution house and go, hey, I need somebody to.
Well, there's two things that have changed. And again, and I've actually had people tell me in this town, filmmakers, that, you know, they don't really care about the business. And why do I have to do the business? Why do I have to think about distribution? Why do I have to think about this and that? And I'm thinking, well, I guess then you're going to be
'Cause you
watching.
wanna make a
Nobody's going to be watching your films then except your friends and your mom.
Well, if you're not
Yeah.
thinking of the business side of it, you're not as likely to be making your film, unless you're content making a shoestring budget or a no-budget production.
Well,
The
again,
reason to look at the
yeah.
business side of it is because, in order to make a backed, budgeted production, you need to convince business investors that there's a return on their investment, that there is a business plan in place, that they will have the ability, or at least a potential, of seeing some return on the money they put into a project. And if you want people to give you money to make your project, you have to be able to give that back to them.
Well, that gives rise to the second, distribution is a big issue. The other thing that changes constantly because of state, federal, and other countries have different tax structures that can help you fund films. Financing has changed and continues to change every day. And part of that has to do with the fact that some countries, as well as many states in the United States, have increased their level of commitment to doing, tax credits. Georgia is number one.
Incentives.
Incentives. Georgia is number one in this country. Louisiana, Michigan,
That
number
explains
2
why
and
Atlanta
3.
has so much work.
They do, and a side effect of that is that a lot of people that I knew in LA that were in the production side, I believe in the last decade, I think the numbers are something like 50% of what used to be shot in LA 10 years ago is now gone. It's gone.
Oh yeah,
It's gone to other areas, other venues,
kind
other
of
states.
in the late '80s, early '90s.
No, it's really in the last decade.
Because I know
Yeah.
the X-Files was exclusively shot in Vancouver. The Highlander TV series was shot in Vancouver, or in the
I was in
Vancouver area.
Wise Guy. It was shot. I was in the first season of Wise. It was
Wise
shot
Guy
in
was shot
Vancouver.
up there, so-
Yeah, they shot it in Vancouver because the Canadians really worked. They really worked with the company.
production, yeah.
But they at that time though, they did have a 10-point structure, which if you used up those 10 points, then you had to use everybody else Canadian.
Right.
You had 2 points for a star, 2 points for a producer, 2
But I
points
think
for a
that worked to the advantage. I mean, this was television, of course.
No, it was film also.
Film didn't follow for
No,
at
it was
first,
film.
but
No, it was film. They used that same, but now they've gotten rid
no,
of that.
I'm saying in the late '80s, early '90s, it was predominantly television that had moved to Canada. There were some films, but now more and more.
Well, there's still
They're out of
television.
LA.
There's still
I'm
a
not
lot
sure.
of television
Well,
shows
a
that
lot
are
of
in
it.
Canada.
You're right, but there's still. When I was working in Vancouver, there was four films going on at that time. One was the first Look Who's Talking.
Right. I'm
There
not
were,
saying.
I mean, they were
I'm
there.
not saying that they weren't
Let me
there.
tell
I'm
you,
just
anywhere a
saying
producer
now
can
there
save money.
are so many.
Yeah, I heard they're going to save the money.
They're gonna go.
Memphis, for instance, this is a great place to shoot. A lot of cool landmarks. It's got the Mississippi River. There's just it's a cool place to shoot. It's Elvis's hometown.
If you
People
look
dig that.
around, you can do any time, any era, any kind of film in this city that you would ever want to write.
But they don't do it.
Well, it's not only do they not do it, but I think this is where you were going. We don't really have the best incentives in Tennessee.
Statewise, no, they're working on it. I know that they are. There are
working,
certain people
but-
in town like David Merrill from Fuel Film and Shelby Elwood, people like that who are working very hard behind the scenes politically to help change that. But it's difficult with the administration that's now in power.
And we may have gained a slight advantage because the show Nashville, in Nashville, is doing really well. So our state government is actually able to see
But
firsthand
here's the
some of
thing.
what's being done by a production.
But remember when they were shooting that series a few years ago?
Was
Memphis
it
Beat?
Memphis
Memphis
Beat?
Beat.
Yeah, oh Lord.
I mean, the difference between Nashville and Memphis is that the Nashville Film Bureau really worked the program so hard. Plus, for Nashville. Plus, let's face it, to shoot a series like Nashville, which is about country music, to shoot it anywhere else is kind of silly because they've got everything there.
Exactly.
So one of the things that helped that production was that it was tailored for the industry that is predominant.
But
in Nashville.
but we hope that maybe its success will show the state government that having a production in your city, I mean, they're generating thousands of dollars
No,
for
Millions.
millions of dollars.
millions of dollars not only in
for the
real money,
Nashville
but
economy.
in recognition.
Just in their economy. I mean, this isn't money that's being paid to people that are taking it out of state. These are people that are being hired and working right
Tax
there.
credits
in the
don't work
city.
that way. You get larger tax credits depending on the amount of budget that you're doing. The tax credits are based entirely on the payout, the accounts receivable of people that are from and live in the state,
Nashville
whether
area.
they're actors, producers, behind the scenes people, secretaries that work in the production office. All the payouts are from people who actually pay taxes in the state of Tennessee.
Do you
So
do
it
you
gives
think
it not only generates money, but it gives work.
to the locals in the
Exactly.
area,
Exactly.
right?
That's the whole idea.
do you think that that's something that will have a positive effect on Memphis in the long run?
Well, it should. It makes sense that it should, but it all depends.
See, that's the problem with
Well,
government.
no, it just
makes
depends.
sense.
It just depends on how Memphis's film bureau works that. And
This is true because
Yeah.
they've got to want to fight for it just as hard as
Yeah.
anybody else does. I mean, our film bureau is going to have to be the people that. I mean, we as filmmakers, you as somebody that's been into film and have done a lot of things for film as a writer and all the other things that you've done. Not only do we have to be supportive of it and be a voice, but we actually have to be those people that have to go to our film commission and press them to do the same thing. I mean, it's not something that one or the other can do. I think it's going to be something that everybody is going to have.
We're not
to
going
do.
to get anything if we're quiet.
well, I mean, Lynn Sittler is the one who runs the Memphis Film Bureau, which it's not called Memphis Film Bureau.
Film Commission.
Film Commission. And I've had many conversations over the years I've been here with Lynn, and I think that one of the things that she suggests that sometimes filmmakers are not aware of and come to her, especially inexperienced filmmakers. They believe that the film commission exists to help them find investors and money, and that's not why they
No.
exist. That's not why they exist.
No, quite the opposite. You have to have your funding in place.
You have to have your funding
For
in place
them to
before they can
actually be
really.
able to help you.
Yes, a film commission, one of their jobs is to smooth the way for filmmaking companies to be able to, on a production end,
Achieve their
have
goals.
have a lot easier time dealing with the local politics, permits, issues, location issues that arise, things like that. People actually on the ground that know the city well enough to assist the production people. But having said that, I do think that the film commission could work more closely with, and I know Lynn's trying to do this. As a matter of fact, the film commission's based on that conversations with her recent efforts are now beginning to focus more on Memphis's own independent filmmakers. I mean, that's, because it is going to be difficult to bring big time productions in here without the incentives that exist elsewhere.
And we also have to establish that there are voices, filmmakers with a voice in this city. We have to prove that we have the people necessary for crew that can be relied on, that can be professional, that can have proper set etiquette. I mean, we need to prove to anybody that's going to bring a production into this city that we have what they need, and that they can count on it. That they can believe and count on what they find.
It is true. I mean, I believe, for instance, I think there's only 2 people in town that actually have, I may be wrong about this, but I know for a fact there's 2 people in town that have fully equipped grip trucks.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, that's something you need when a production company comes in. If you got more than one production company, it's difficult.
Yeah.
Because you don't have the equipment. I mean, it's expensive to rent or buy or bring your own equipment all this way, unless you're going into,
But
some
again,
really strange,
like
like
you
the
said,
desert or.
producers, if they can save money, they will.
Mhm.
By having that equipment here in town, they don't have to pay
Well, that's my point.
fuel costs, transport costs, whatever else they might be facing to bring it here.
Well, it was just like, we've been talking about, things going to Georgia, things going to New Orleans and other places. It's just like this new HBO
Even
pilot.
Mississippi now.
This pilot that HBO's doing now.
Which one?
Quarry.
Quarry.
Oh, Quarry, right.
Yeah.
They're shooting in North Mississippi.
They're shooting it 2 miles from my house.
Mhm.
It's because
Mississippi has
Mississippi has incentives.
That's right.
And,
I understand they actually wanted to shoot in Memphis.
They did.
they did.
Yeah.
And
They're barely in Mississippi because they
they're-
want to be in Memphis so
yeah,
badly.
and I mean, they're right there at the tip of the sip.
State line.
Yeah, state
I
line.
hadn't heard that before. I like that. Tip of the sip.
Yeah. Thank you, Drake and Zeke. But I do have to say congratulations to
Keith Goff.
Keith
yes.
Goff, who's a local
He
actor.
spoke to me on the phone the other day
Yeah.
about he called me and asked me some advice.
He
And
got the
he got
role as the body double for
Logan.
Logan. He took Marshall or
Logan
Green.
Marshall Green.
Yeah.
he got the body double.
Yeah,
for
he
Logan
actually.
Marshall
It
Green.
was, kudos to you, Mr. Goff. He called me the other day and asked my advice on how to deal with that, and I told him what to expect.
I think you were the second call
Mhm.
because he called me right after he called me. He's like, I'm going to call Laz and some other people as well, but he called me and was just overly excited about it. What do I do? How do I do this? And I'm very proud of him. And Victoria Cleveland, I think, landed
Did she
something
get
on
something
that as well.
Fantastic.
Yeah.
Well, it's good. I mean, there's no question that. I mean, certainly from an acting standpoint, and I teach acting, as you know,
That's
We were
what we
gonna
were
get
gonna.
there.
That was one of the
I'm
biggest
sure we'll
things
get
we're
an
gonna.
opportunity to get to that, but there certainly are a lot of talented people from an acting standpoint here in Memphis, but the majority of them have not really worked on truly real professional situations, so they're unaware about how to really go about being on a professional SAG set, and it is different.
And that's the conversation that me and Keith had when he had called me. He was like, "What do I need to do? How do I need to approach this?" I was like, "Keith, you're working with the main character of this pilot. It's as of right now, it's just the pilot. Nothing's been picked
Right.
up more than that."
Right.
And I told him, I said, "You really need to concentrate on the things that he does on camera, the things that he doesn't do on camera when he's off camera." I was like, "You probably don't want to, unless he approaches you, you might want to talk to a second assistant director, find out things from him. That's the thing. When something comes to this town, a lot of the actors in this town don't know how to do things. And that's where, with Laz and I, we are acting coaches. We have our own acting classes. You have your own acting classes. When people mention Daniel Martine, or they say Martine, Daniel Martine has this reputation of being one of these gruff, over-the-top acting coaches. And when people approach us about it, and they say something to us about it as people that have an acting class, they go, I don't know if I can deal with that guy. And the first thing that we tell them is, deal with him, because he's not going to lead you wrong. This is a man that has been in this business for a long time. He's actually going to shoot you straight on what it's going to be like in Los Angeles. So, you know, your reputation as an acting coach is well out there, but you have that charisma to be able to put people where they need to be in place. And a lot of people don't know you like that, and they don't understand that.
I think they also don't take into consideration that being an actor in independent local productions is one thing. Being an actor in LA is a whole other game.
Different thing.
This man has been through that.
Mm-hmm.
And if they think going to his class here is rough, then they just need to quit. Because when they go out to LA, it's a whole nother game.
Well,
people here have no concept of what it is
they
to
really don't.
audition for a class.
Mm-hmm.
Prepay months at a time, and if you're not there on time, that door is shut and you're not getting a refund. And people here have no idea what that is like and the kind
there
of
may be
passion
times
that
if
takes.
you don't do your work right the first time, even if you do, there may be weeks before you get an opportunity to get up in front of the class and actually do acting. People don't understand, because when you're part of the process of learning how to act, it's not just getting up and read a script 27 times.
That's very little of it, actually.
Yeah, and I studied in New York, and I studied in Cleveland, was a great guy. I studied in LA with people. I've had some fantastic teachers like Uta Hagen, Mira Rostova, Julie Bovaso in New York. These are people that you would recognize if you saw them.
Uta Hagen's
Uta Hagen was
one of the
early actor studio people
Yeah.
in the 40s, 30s and 40s with John Houseman, John Garfield, Montgomery Clift. I can go down a whole long list, and I was fortunate enough. I studied with Sandy Meisner in the 70s. I studied with Lee Strasberg for 3 months with him and his daughter at Actors Studio in New York. I didn't like it. I'm not a method guy, but I thought, I'm an actor. I need to learn something new. Let me see if this works for me. It didn't, and I don't push method acting on anybody. It doesn't work for me.
Right.
But having said that, it might work for somebody else, and that's fine. And I suggest that people go out and do
at least educate themselves.
Yeah. But here's the problem that I found here in Memphis, and again, it goes back to lack of professionalism. I teach class, and by this time I've had 30 or 40 people in my 50 people off and on over the 2.5, 3 years I've been doing it here, and I have some very talented people. Wow.
You've got some of my favorite actors.
Yes.
in this
Oh
class
God,
right now.
they're tremendous. But even having said that, because everybody has to work day jobs and do this and that, they don't always put in the work that they need to.
Right.
And when even out in LA and New York, these actors that go to the class with the money they're spending, okay, with the money they're spending and the time that they put, I know people are going to class 3 or 4 nights a week in LA.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, because they want to learn their craft better. And I've been in class with famous actors, from Sean Penn all the way to Michael Murray to I go down home without name dropping.
Well, even though that you
Because they're there polishing their craft.
exactly, that's what we
They're
were supposed
honing
to
their
say.
craft, and they do the work. When they come to class, they're prepared. And a lot of times I see here, just like I see in a lot of productions, people aren't prepared. I've actually been on productions in this town where actors come on the set, don't know their lines.
Mm-hmm.
Or they're late.
Mm-hmm.
And they're late to class. They don't know their stuff. And if you're late to class twice and and for 2 times in a row
You're
in LA,
done.
New York, and you don't and you're not prepared, they'll drop you. Why? Because there's a line of people behind you ready to take your spot. So I'm told I'm gruff. Okay, I'm not really that gruff. I'm really not.
No,
I'm
you're
straightforward.
Not. We've actually
That's-
attended your class.
I don't
We-
speak.
yeah.
I don't speak Southern subtext.
Yeah.
Okay, I'm straightforward. Okay, and I know that offends some people here in down here, and I understand that. Okay,
Well,
I
people
I
here
get that.
don't. A lot of the new people that are interested in acting.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, when I see a lot of times when they find out what it is that you have to do
It's
to prepare, it's work. They think that once they go to an acting class or 2 or 3 acting classes or a month worth, then, okay, I'm an actor now. And it's the same thing that you talked about, coming on sets, not knowing their lines, being late, not knowing the set etiquettes and everything like that.
Oh yeah, that's a big one.
That is.
That's
and
a
in
huge
our
one.
classes,
I've had
that's
that
one of the-
experience directing a couple times here.
Right.
And I was interrupted as a director, you know, while I'm right in the middle of working with my DP and the actor in a scene, and people were angry because I wouldn't turn around and talk to them and say,
Yeah.
I'm working, excuse me.
Yeah.
They would have been fired on a regular set. I didn't have the option to do that.
We have told many people that, and like I said, acting here is very different than trying to be an actor somewhere else, but we've told everybody, you know, if you think that Daniel is gruff, so be it. But if you ever want to leave this city and work anywhere else, you need to go to Daniel's class first, because it isn't acting in this city. Daniel can teach you how to handle yourself anywhere in this country.
Absolutely.
It's not just about acting. Again, people have a lot of ability.
It's etiquette. It's
Yeah.
the whole
It's
process of being
it's also
the
understanding the
actor.
business side.
Mm-hmm.
You know, because you can't, if you don't, when you approach becoming any aspect of this business, which attracts a lot of talented, creative people, but the fact remains, it is a business.
Yes.
And if you don't approach it like a business, and if you're an actor, if you don't approach it like you are your own corporation, for instance, a lot of people think that they work for agents. No. An agent works for you. You have to give an agent what he requires or she requires. You have to give him your resume. You have to keep him supplied with pictures. You have to get, if you have any tape of yourself, you know, any video of yourself, you have to be given to them. They put it up, you know, where various places online or what have you. And, you know, that aspect of the business has changed some because of technology. But the fact remains that they work for you. Okay?
You
And-
are essentially the CEO of your own, the company
Pretty
that
much,
is you.
yeah.
And you have to put in that kind of work. You have to put yourself out there. You have to be the salesman for yourself. You have to be the distributor for yourself. You have to be the marketer for yourself. You have to handle all of this stuff. You can't just go to a class, get in a little project, and all of a sudden you're a working actor.
Well, you know, we spoke about what's Mr. Goss' first name?
Keith.
Keith, right. When I spoke to him on the phone, it's the second time he's called me over, and I think you guys turned him on to me.
Yeah.
Turned me on to him rather. But one of the things that I spoke to him, I said, this is your first time in a SAG situation, and I suggest to him how he should conduct himself throughout the process. And like if he has questions, talk to the second AD, because the second AD is the person that deals with the actors. He deals with their salaries, the SAG meal penalties, the per diems. All these are things he's going to get by being involved in a SAG shoot. And I said, there is a political process, a set etiquette you have to observe. And they're going to know right away that you're an amateur, and not take you very seriously if you don't do some of the things I suggested to him to do.
And that's exactly what I informed him of. And I told him, I said, this is one of the biggest things. If you get around a group of people, especially extras, other body doubles, other actors and actresses, and they start Lord and behold, they start the bitching aspect. Well, we've been here since 9 o'clock this morning. We still haven't done it. I said, the first thing that you do is walk away and stand in a corner somewhere else. I said, because that right there, everything that you do on this set is going to be remembered. You're going to be, if it's something derogatory and negative, they're going to remember you more than they remembered if you did good.
I'll give you a personal example. A mistake that I made, and I knew better. I was working on one of the, and I don't know if you have a segment of it or not, I gave it to Kent, of young writers, but I got cast on that mainly because they liked my look and because I knew how to ride horses. Now, actors lie all the time about their particular skills
Right.
and hobbies and gifts, but I actually could ride a horse, and that is a funny story. But the fact is, I remember on that set meeting a really attractive girl from Hawaii, and on a shoot night when I should have been in bed at 11 o'clock because I had to get up and be in makeup by 5:30 or 6, we decided to party a little bit all night. The next day, I had some of my biggest scenes, and I fluffed a couple of scenes, and it took them 3 takes to do it. And I want to tell you folks that television moves at especially
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, it's
moves at
completely different.
a completely different, quicker rate. You're talking about you have 10 days to shoot basically half a movie. Okay, basically in terms of time.
Oh, yeah.
And they move from one setup to another. I mean, you're lucky if you get a second shot at it. You're ready to boogie. They get next setup, next reverse, boom, next shot, next scene. They move. I mean, they're shooting 6 pages a day.
Oh, yeah.
Got to,
Yeah.
because you still have, and because there's other things you have to do there. And the shoot days are only 6 days. You're there usually 3 or 4 days ahead of time.
And that young writers at that time, you're talking 22 hours of television in
There were 22 episodes. You're right.
9 months.
That's right. No, it was
10
more
months.
like 6 months, 7 months.
Were they on a 6
Yeah, we
month
were.
shoot?
Listen, my gig, I got there. I was there. They said, okay, they got off for Christmas, and then everybody was back December 29th. I had to be there December 29th. I got there. I had to spend New Year's in Tucson,
Okay, so
Arizona.
they were on a fast
On a
really
fast track.
fast track.
Right, I was there over New Year's night.
Wow.
New Year's night, I was in a Tucson hotel by myself. We shot it outside of Tucson, and I was talking to my friends on, they were having parties that I was supposed to go to in L.A., and here I was all by myself.
So-
but it's a gig.
Did you catch flack for being unprepared?
Yes, I did. The director was an Egyptian cat. I can't remember his name all these years later, but he went directly from that to directing the first Stepfather. Stepfather 1.
Terry
Good guy. I
Oakley.
saw him later, about a year later, at the Writers Computer Store in Santa Monica, which is the best writers store on the planet. And it's right down Santa Monica Boulevard, right by where the 405 and the 10 is. And I mean to tell you, he gave me a little crap even then, but I was wrong. I was tired the next day. I looked at it, I fluffed my lines, and Bialy called me. It was Sharon Bialy, who was the casting director. She called me when I got back down and says, they were very disappointed. And they took me off
And
the
that's
front.
the last thing you want to
They
hear.
took me off the front card in the credits. I was a guest, a legitimate guest star on that show, and they took me off the front card and put me on the
Put
back
you on the
card
tail.
as punishment.
Let's go ahead and take a cutaway and look at this quick scene here. Is this the scene where you ride up
This
on
is
the house?
actually from Young Riders, and this was actually the scene that I kind of screwed up. But I pulled it off. Changed a little bit. Go ahead.
Let's go ahead and take a look.
I'll set it up later. What happened?
Morning, ma'am.
Morning.
Sorry to bother you so early in the morning, but we're looking for someone. Dark hair, about my size. Name's Rollins. You know him?
Can't say I do.
That's too bad. I know he was expecting us too.
You do? Look, I don't know who you're looking for, but I swear he's not here.
Ma'am, I'm disappointed.
Oh! Mommy, are you okay? Jeremy, no, stay back!
I spent 7 years in prison counting the dates I'd get out to clear what was mine. Imagine my surprise when I found it was gone. Only one man knew where that loot was hidden. Your husband. Where is he?
I don't know what you're talking about. He went into town to see the sheriff. If I were you, I'd get as far away from here as I could before they get back.
Tell your pa Nicholson wants his money. Have him bring it to Marquez Canyon at midday, alone. You're never gonna see your mama here again, boy. You understand? Huh? Marquez Canyon.
All right, that was a quick look at a small scene from Young Riders starring Daniel Martine, and I understand there's a little bit of backstory
Well,
other
there's a
than
little
just
bit that
screwing
we
it
were
up.
just, and by the way, that starred, Stephen Baldwin and Josh Brolin. It was their both of it was their first big starring roles.
I forgot Josh Brolin was in
yeah,
that.
they were in it. They played, Billy the Kid and young Bill Hickok.
Yeah.
As Pony as Pony Express riders. Of course, they took a lot of historical license with the facts, but it was still fun to do. It was fun. I get to play a cowboy. I grew up riding horses, and it was.
What kid doesn't?
I got paid
a
I got
cowboy.
paid a nice small 5-figure sum for playing cowboys and Indians on a horse for a week.
There's nothing wrong
There's
with that.
nothing.
No,
absolutely.
I mean, it was really
childhood
great.
dream.
But that was the scene that I basically screwed up. They had to shoot it 3 times, and they actually had to do a bad cut. And it started off with, I knew it was going to be bad. Now I can grow. You guys know me. I have a heavy beard. I can grow a mustache and heart, but I didn't have one for that because So they wanted me to have a mustache, so that they, it was darker when I was younger, and there's a younger sequence,
Right.
a flashback sequence where I actually kill this kid, the bald guy's Travis Fine's family, and so they put this fake mustache and it looked good. It was a brush mustache, and I had my own. That was my hair, and we started to shoot the scene, and the mustache kept coming off. So the makeup lady put some more gum on it to keep it down, but it kept, it was windy. We shot the whole thing out practically outdoors, outside of Tucson, and then I kept screwing up. I kept fluffing the lines. I was tired. I was exhausted from being a bad boy the night before, and sure enough, we had to cut 3 times, which is unheard of. And finally I got it right. And then the next issue was, as I slap her to the ground, as you saw in the video, and then I had to pick her up. I couldn't pick her up. I had to, so we had, the way I picked her up, we had to cut they did a great cut, a great edit. It was a great edit, and it made me look better than I actually did it. And then I go over to the little boy, who, by the way, was Billy Bonsall, the actor who played, Brian Bonsall. Brian Bonsall. His name was Billy on the show. Brian Bonsall, who was the little kid in Family Ties that they added a couple years later into the run of the show. A little trooper, because here he is, this big grizzled, ugly-looking, half-scarred guy. I had my face in his hands, and he gave me that look, and he was. Most kids would be frightened out of their wits. They'll see me, with my big voice. And he was just very trooper. He looked scared like the role was, but a real trooper. And I looked at him, and then I started laughing because he just gave me that look like, okay, I'm scared, but I'm not really scared. Because I've been doing this a long time, and I'm a little pro. So we had to cut, and then I screwed up the lines. Finally, I changed the lines where I was more comfortable with it, and it worked better. And it was because I realized I couldn't remember the lines because I was still so tired, so I said, well, let me make up something that'll work within the context, and they kept it. They didn't say anything. I guess probably because, let's get this scene the hell over.
Go.
You know what I mean? But it ended up looking pretty good, I thought, But the kid was incredible. Because, he should have been scared to death of me. Because he was like, I don't know
Well,
about that.
it was one thing. There was one thing about that kid. He was a professional.
He was.
And that's,
He was. On that day, he was more professional than I was. But
Well, he
let
didn't
me
go out
tell you, I
party
never
all
did
night.
that again. I learned my lesson, and I knew better. It's not like I was my first gig. By this time, I'd been on 5 or 6 movies, 7 or 8 television shows, all the years of stage, which goes to show you, sometimes, even when you think you got it knocked, you can make a mistake and be unprofessional, and it will reflect on you.
Yeah.
And Bialy didn't cast me for anything for 3 more years, and she told me why.
Don Myers was here a few weeks back, and he was telling us a story about when he was on. The title for I'm going to
General
lose the
Hospital.
title. It was a General,
General
Hospital,
Hospital,
or one
I
of the soap operas at
Soaps
the time.
did. I did
Yeah.
soap.
But he was a client to a lawyer, and either the lawyer or the judge or
Kelsey
someone
Grammer.
was
It was the
Dabney,
lawyer.
Dabney
Dabney
Coleman.
Coleman. Dabney Coleman, yeah.
Oh.
And he had a scene with Dabney Coleman where he has to challenge him, and he did it, and Dabney Coleman froze, and they cut, reset. Dabney Coleman did it again. He froze, They did it a third time, and the director fired him.
Fired Don?
No,
No.
fired
Oh, fired
Dabney
Dabney.
Coleman. Right,
Yeah.
Don was sitting there doing what he was supposed to do, and he watched as they fired Dabney Coleman, who at that point I think was fresh off of or about to go into 9 to 5. So this was a name,
Yeah.
and it was just a soap opera. But they told him to walk because he was not doing what he was there to do.
And believe me, if they hadn't been in the middle of this, they probably would have fired me. But by then they'd had too much footage. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
And then something else can happen. For instance, I did, do you remember Midnight Caller with Gary Cole?
Yes.
Where he played a midnight
It's
jock,
one
a
of the first
radio jock.
original late night
Yeah.
network shows.
All right, and we shot. That was all shot on location in San Francisco. That was fun. I played a rapist that calls him up on the phone and tells him, "I'm going to do it again." I think his name was Jack in the show.
I think so.
Yeah, and then they get the police and all that looking for me all over San Francisco, and then they're chasing me one night down in the middle of the night. It's rainy a lot in San Francisco. They're chasing me down the steps of the Embarcadero, which are huge, that go down into Fisherman's Wharf, that area on the docks there in San Francisco. Very famous landmarks. And I'm going down the steps of the Embarcadero, and it's wet, and I'm running, my long hair flying in the wind, the cops firing, and they're shooting the squibs off, and bouncing off everywhere. And all of a sudden, I hit one of the steps, and I slip because it's wet, upended, and hit my tailbone. I want to tell you, the pain was excruciating. I mean, I lost my breath. It was so painful. I thought I broke my butt, literally. And I did. I didn't fracture, but I bruised my coccyx, which is the tailbone. I couldn't breathe. The pain was stupid. They took me to the hospital. They had to stop shooting because they took me to the hospital. I was in the hospital for 4 days. They switched the shooting schedule. It was crazy. We were shooting day for night, night for day, to accommodate my schedule. Me being in the hospital. So I got out of the hospital on the 5th day, and I mean to tell you, I mean to tell you, I felt better. I was still in pain, but I couldn't run. I was crab walking. I mean, I walked like an 80-year-old man, who was crippled. At the time I was 35 or 36, whatever it was. And I mean to tell you, I was in pain, and I still had to finish that sequence. And I told him, I said, I can't do this. I tried, and I was in pain. I'm like an old man, crab running. They said, "You're right, you can stop." So they got a stunt guy, put a long hair wig. That's how they finished it. You know what I mean? But I had a heck of a time.
What are some of the movies? You've done some TV. What are some of the other movies that you're able to talk about? If they're not able to be talked about, then we're not going to.
No. We can talk about. I mean, I was in Pretty Woman, but all my stuff got cut out. I was originally cast in Pretty Woman as the original pimp, and 4 months before it started shooting, and it wasn't called
Pretty Woman.
It was called 3,000, for the $3,000 that I guess Richard Gere pays Julia Roberts to do what he wanted her to do. And I had the script and everything. I was cast, and I got a call from a lady by the name of Claire, who I knew. She was Gary Marshall's assistant, personal assistant. He was the director, Gary Marshall, actor, Penny Marshall's older brother.
Penny Marshall's father.
Right. Everybody. He's been in movies, and he's directed many famous movies, like League of Their Own, blah blah blah. No, actually, Penny did that. Sorry. And anyway,
he created Happy Days.
He helped create Happy
Days.
Days, yes, absolutely. And among his many credits, you're basically a gruff New York Jew, like I grew up with him. He was hilarious, a lot of ways, but he was also. You want to talk gruff?
He was gruff.
He was rough and gruff. People here, the actors here, they've been scared to death of him. So it turns out she calls me 4 months, says you've been recast. So they sent me a check for a certain amount of money. It was nice, and I'm bummed. Oh my God. Oh jeez. And I said, why recast? Well, we're turning it into a comedy. It wasn't a comedy. It was actually kind of a dark piece where Richard Gere and she and Julia Roberts don't get each other in the end. I still have that original script, and it wasn't a comedy. Not like it turned out to be.
Interesting.
It was not a fantasy comedy like.
I would have liked it better.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So they sent me. So I'm playing basketball with a lot of actors. I think that day I was playing with Dirk Benedict, Boom Boom Mancini, the boxer from Youngstown, a couple other guys. We're playing ball at Santa Monica Y. This was beeper time. This is back in the early 90s, beepers, 1989, 90. A beeper went off. All the actors rushed to their gym bags. That's mine. So it's my agent. He called me and says, they need you to go out to Disney Studio right now in Burbank. And I said, why? What's going on? He says, well, they want you to come in and read for another role on 3000. I said, what? I got fired from that. What are we talking about? Well, they want you to be like an assistant pimp. An assistant? I didn't know pimps had assistants. Okay.
You're the hand.
Yeah.
Yeah, right.
Here's the powder.
You know, and he was a pool playing hustler, which I can play pool, but I'm certainly not good enough to be a hustler. Okay, I mean, you know, we ended up having a trick shot artist for the scene that never went in the movie. So I said, okay, so I went out there and I'm dressed in my basketball tops and I go out there and I auditioned for Gary and his, they were on lunch break and one of the big, you know, they have about 5 or 6 big sound stages there at the Disney Studio on their lot. And he was in a little trailer outside. I go in there and he says, well, this is a comedy now, so I want you to do it straight and then I want you, you know. So he's sitting there eating lunch, doesn't even look at me. I'm inside the trailer. And this was the scene with Julia Roberts. So Claire was reading, and I'm reading the other part. And I get done doing it, and I said, "Well, how's that, Gary?" He said, "That's fine. I'll do it funny." He didn't even look. Do it funny. Got the New York guy. Hey, do it funny. Okay. So I did it funny, and then I'm done. I said, "Is that it?" He says, "No, do it with some pathos." It's a good thing I was well educated enough to know what pathos meant. Otherwise, I would have to. You mean
What?
pathetic? I don't know what. What do you want? And so I did it with some pathos. I tried to milk the moment, and, try to make this pimp, I guess, appealing, And he said, "That's great, thanks." I walk out the door and I said, "What was that all about?" He says, "Never mind. You got the job. You're working. It's a month work, maybe 5 weeks, 6 weeks on hold." And I said, "I don't get it." He said, "I'll tell you later." Turns out that he likes to play basketball at lunchtime. I'd never worked with him before. About 3 days a week he'd play basketball. I used to be in a producer-director game at UCLA's intramural gym. Play with guys like Andrew Vajana, Mario Cassar. These are big guys.
So he's loading his team.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I could still dunk until I was 40, 41. And so I was a good ball player. And that's why they wanted me on the set. I didn't know this until after the show. I made another good chunk of change, but I had 9 scenes that all got cut.
Well,
Biggest movie of the year I got cut.
Well, that comes with the
ending
territory.
up on the editing room floor is part of it.
That's Hollywood.
Yeah.
Being
what I'm saying.
recast is part of it. You told me a similar story months ago about The Crow, where you were actually cast in the role that was later given to.
I don't even remember his name. Long-haired guy.
And
Skinny.
Michael.
Oh,
I cannot believe I can't think.
Matt
of
was.
Matt, help us out.
The villain in The Crow, the first Crow?
Michael Wincott.
Wincott.
I was actually cast in that role.
And then it went to.
It went to him because I was dark hair and Jason Lee.
Mhm.
No,
Brandon
Lee was dark hair, and they didn't want too dark. They wanted the what do you call it,
And yet Michael Wincott has long
dark
black hair.
Yeah.
No, he didn't have it. He had brown hair, as I remember. He had
Well, in the
Well,
film, it was brown hair when it was in.
closer to his.
It
to
is
Kent's
brown,
color.
but when they've got the color correction going.
And
No,
the
you know what I'm
shadows
saying.
and
I
everything, it
stood
was
next to
black.
him.
Yeah.
All right. I mean, I've had cinematographers tell me that when my hair
What-
was all
what-
black, I suck up light. He didn't suck up light.
What's funny is anybody that's read The Crow,
Which I never did.
would know the original Caliber, or I guess Kitchen Sink comic. You actually would fit the role
better.
a little bit better.
I never
than
actually saw the
Michael
comic. I never
Wincott.
read it. I know you love that stuff. You
Yeah,
get it, but
I was the one person.
That's
that
why,
got
but
it.
I understand. But I understood that to be the case when I was cast. That's
Right.
why they cast me.
And I mean, like you said, you get fired from Pretty Woman, brought back in a completely different role, end up on the editing room floor. You can get cast in a movie like The Crow as the villain, and then fairly last minute, if I remember the story correctly, that's taken and given to someone else.
Now, there's one that's my favorite.
Well, there's also the roles that get you uncredited.
Yeah.
And we won't disclose the role, but I know you were in Predator 2, in an undisclosed
Disclosed.
role.
And here's the other thing. I was actually cast in Michael Keaton's. I was the main bad guy in One Good Cop, directed by Haywood Abram. Michael Keaton is 5'7". That's it. I mean, I stood next to him. He complained after the first day of shooting to the director that I was too tall and too prepossessing for people to believe that
You outshined him.
Yeah,
And your
yeah.
stature.
And so they hired my buddy Johnny Leguizamo, who's closer to his size.
Now, my favorite one is with you, and I believe it was Seagal.
sorry,
Steven Seagal.
Oh God.
That's the funniest one that you have ever told me, and I could almost picture it. I can almost picture it being done.
There just aren't words.
Here's the situation. He had one hit movie, Above the Law.
I
Right.
would say his first
Okay,
one.
and he got that gig because he was teaching Michael Ovitz, who at that time headed CAA. Okay, he taught him privately karate, and he's great. I mean,
He's a
Steven
great-
Seagal.
yeah,
he knows his
he's not
moves.
great. I mean, I was studying martial arts. There's a bunch of guys I knew that said we could take Seagal in a heartbeat, and Van Damme the same. Van Damme had one leg sweep. That was it.
Yeah.
And he looks good, but he couldn't fight. Guys in my dojo in Van Nuys, all of them could have killed Van Damme, murdered him. Okay, but I'm on the set. The director Bruce Malma is a friend of mine. The uncredited writers were friends of mine. The uncredited writers were Dan O'Bannon and Ronald Shusett, and they created one name. I forget what was the name. Something. That's the other writer with Seagal, and it was called. When I did it was called Red Storm Rising, which later was called because his name was Mason Storm, and it was Hard to Kill.
Hard to Kill.
Hard to
yeah.
Kill.
I was going to say they were all
Because
above
I
the law,
have
hard to kill.
a lot of movies
Above-
I've been in, they've changed the name, so I always remember the original. So Hard to Kill. I know the director. I know these two writers, and these two writers are when they created the original Alien.
I was going to say Dan
Right.
O'Bannon,
And then
of course.
and later I spent 6 months on the set of
Predator 2.
with Total Recall working.
Oh, okay.
Working with Ronald. Okay, but I know guys in the film. I know the writers. I know the director. I know the producer, and they hired me because I had that long-haired, wild, crazy man look, and that's what they wanted. Seagal comes on the set, and at the end of the second day, we've already in the second or third day of shooting. He's losing his hair.
Yes, he
Yes.
was.
And he was losing his hair. He's had a hair transplant.
Yes,
since
he
then.
has.
Okay, but here's the deal. So he turned right around to
Bad ones.
Bruce Malmouth and told Bruce, well, he didn't even look at me. Talked to me. This guy's, I don't like his hair, man. He's got better hair than I do. Either cut his hair off or fire him. and Bruce says, no, we cast him in the role, and he's first of all, because he's tall like me.
Yeah, as I say, he's a tall
he's
man.
actually an inch taller than me. Seagal's actually an inch taller, and that's when I was still slender too. We looked,
And that's before you got the
yeah, and he and so I mean I got fired. I got a nice check, but
You got fired because
I got
your
fired
hair
because
was better
of-
than
of-
Seagal's.
Yeah, I got fired because Seagal didn't have the right hair, and later they used shoe polish to paint in there, but they didn't really notice until later in editing that because of the heat
It was
outdoors and
melting.
all, it started dripping. So they had to do like about a week of reshoots after the principal photography was done. Then I run into him years later in Memphis.
Now this is
I
hilarious.
can't tell this story. I can't. I run into him through another friend of mine, went over to his house in Germantown. I can't relate that story, but it
Yeah.
was surreal. That's all I
It
can
was
tell you.
hilarious, is what it was.
Yeah, I wish I could tell that story, but I really can't.
My limited experience with Steven Seagal is
And it should remain
pretty
limited.
much that it's all surreal.
Surreal. Yeah.
Just
He's
being,
a very.
he kind of emanates a surrealism.
Well,
he emanates
I
Steven
know some of the
Seagal.
cats that he worked with when he was making his blues album here.
Mm-hmm.
I won't say their names, but most of them would, if you asked them, and they were really straightforward with you, they would tell you, we'd rather cut our arms off than do a recording with this guy again. And he's actually a pretty damn good guitar player. And he plays, I mean,
just
a lot of people don't know this.
He's
He's talented. I'm not going
It's
to
just-
He's
a
talented, but
difficult
I've heard that.
personality.
Yeah, he's a difficult personality.
That's,
By everybody's best.
I think that's fair to say.
I mean, I won't go on record.
I mean, I
as
have
saying
more
I
stories,
think that, but I don't
won't.
know it.
I'm not going to share them, because I know they're true. But I mean, he can be difficult. But there's a lot of people that can be difficult.
At the same time, I'm not justifying anything he may or may not have done, but when you're in that kind of a spotlight, when you're in that kind of a position, there is a certain amount of stress that it puts you under.
If you're carrying a film, there was an incident here with a well-known actor. If I say the actor, then a lot of people will know who the local Memphis actor was. That was his body double. But there was a film that was shot here about a decade ago, And this actor is a very good actor, a tremendous actor, method trained, and he works method, which means once you get on the set, he's in makeup and costume. That's who he is. If you're going
all
to talk
day.
to him, you got to talk to him as the character. Otherwise, he won't respond to you. I respect that. That's not how I work, but I respect it. And later, I worked with this guy who was his body double in another project here in Memphis, and to this day, he remains pissed off at this actor because he didn't talk to him, didn't look him in the eye, none of that. Didn't, because Southerners are supposed to be warm and friendly,
Right.
and they expect people to be warm and friendly with them and all that. But the fact is, when an actor who's the lead in a film, and the film rides on him, he or she has to have the time, the ability, and the space to be able to do what they need to do to make magic on the camera, because
Yes.
that's why everybody's on the set.
I've told a lot of people.
And if they don't talk to you, hey, you know what? That's not important.
We've had conversations with actors and just curious onlookers and whatever else there might be. Ask questions like, why do directors or actors have trailers? Or, why do they feel they have to be alone? Or why don't they, when they're done shooting, why won't they sign autographs or anything like that? And I try to tell people that the green room or the trailer isn't about the actor's ego. It's about the actor having the space
It's
to
their
prepare
place for
themselves
It's a
and
refuge.
and
It's
then
a-
to
it's their
unwind
serenity.
from. Yeah, exactly.
It's a place where they can go. They collect their thoughts. I mean,
You
being an
gentlemen
act-
of work sets.
Yes.
They're noisy. They're noisy places, all kinds of activity going on, and it can ruin your concentration. So
I mean,
And
I've
when you're
even
carrying the
said
film,
it.
as you said.
I've even said it. Y'all want me? I'm going to my damn trailer.
Exactly.
Because it is.
you have a trailer?
We did.
Wow.
We had
Yeah,
the RV.
How come
Yeah,
I'm
we
not
had an
working on
RV.
those shoots?
Yeah, we used to have an RV for our sets
Right.
when we
Nice.
shot. So
Nice.
and
To try just to create a refuge place for any
Which
individual.
it's a place that you can separate the set, and if you're if you're used to it, it becomes your home after a certain amount of days.
I mean, we would go there, or he would send Todd. He'd say, "Todd, go ahead to the trailer and take some time." But it is a refuge.
It is.
It's the one place you have as an actor where you can shut all of that out, and either on the front end prepare yourself for what it is you are about to have to do for 6 hours, 8 hours, 10 hours, 13 hours. And then when you have done that, it is a place you can go to come away from it all. And if you're not given that time properly, it can really affect your social etiquette, your ability to interact with people.
I agree, but to be fair, I've also worked on SAG shoots in several countries, and sometimes you don't have that ability especially if you're way out on location somewhere. So it becomes sometimes becomes difficult. But even still, on a professional set, even if you can't go somewhere, if you kind of leave the area, just let the second AD know where you're going,
Yeah.
so they can find you in case they need to shoot something, and you can go away. You still need that space to be able to get yourself together, because when it really comes down to it, is that it is the actor whose butt is on the screen, and everything. And this is what I think a lot of non-professionals don't understand about the business, is that everything that happens on a set, everything that happens in a production office, everything that happens in pre-production, every aspect of the production, all is geared towards the central issue, and that is the director being able to work with his DP and the actors in that particular moment on the set to make the magic they need to make in order to make a good film. And everything, every cog in the machine is turning
Towards that end.
towards that end, exactly. And a lot of people don't get that. They don't and part of it here, I think, is because in smaller independent productions that are not monetized to the degree that they hopefully could be or should be, that many people have to wear multiple
Multiple
hats.
hats.
But here's the thing. Let's talk about that for a second. We're talking about set professionalism. Because you have to wear multiple hats, sometimes accountability is lost. Okay? The reason a lot of people, well, how come we have to have this and this on a SAG set? All right, let's say you're the cable puller. If the cable's not pulled on the camera or the lights that you have to move and get moved to one location to another, you can turn and say,
It is
why isn't this done?
someone's fault.
You can go to the cable pull. That's why the unions exist.
Yeah.
Okay? everybody has their job. The makeup person has their job. The greensman has his job.
Everybody has accountability.
Because, and if something doesn't happen, you don't have to go through, on an independent set, you're talking to everybody, everybody can say, well, no, it
Which
wasn't
one
me.
of the five
Yeah,
people that might have been doing it didn't
exactly.
do
And
it?
so therefore you waste time, money, effort, and energy, whereas on a SAG unionized set, there is not only the set etiquette that you spoke about, set operations, you're talking about accountability for each department to be doing their job, and if it's not being done, you know exactly who to go to resolve the situation, whether that is get it done or fire them.
You find the weak link and you replace it. You make a stronger
You don't
chain.
always have to replace, but you
Or
certainly go to
correct deal with
it. So you can get it resolved.
So you correct, I mean, you create a stronger chain.
Yeah, and that's what people don't get here, and I think that's what's. I personally, I would love to teach that. I would like to, for instance, another thing, I would like to teach here in Memphis directors on how to work with actors. Most of the directors in town are great shooter geeks.
Yeah.
They understand cameras, lighting. You know, they work. You know, they really dig that.
I think in a lot of ways I might be the exception there. I'm actually
You're one of the
more
exceptions. I would
voiced
consider
towards
myself an exception because we've both been actors.
people. Yeah, well, we've both been actors, we've both been writers, we've both been directors, we've
Right.
both been producers. But I've only done limited shooting. I'm not at all the tech side.
Well, it's not necessary to have all that experience to be able to work with actors, but it does help, I think, to take acting classes from time to time for a director, so that they understand the process that actors have to undergo to get where a director needs them to be.
I can foresay that when me and Laz became business partners, the only thing that I said, I don't want to be in front of the camera. I want to be behind the camera. That's what I want to do. And he goes, no. You need to get in front of the camera. That way you know what it is that your actors are going to go through. So I can contest to that. I can say spot
it makes you
on.
a better director.
It makes you a better director because now, you know, I haven't done much, but, you know, I did Grimjack.
It still gives you an insight
It
into
gives,
what the actors
exactly,
are going
it
through.
does. Because even though that he was the director, the writer of the story, and everything like that, and he's my business partner, now it becomes that separation to where, okay, he's the director, I'm the actor. I need to understand how I approach my actors as a director.
Well, it put you
know,
in a
and
position
it
where
puts you, yeah.
you're creating a character now. You're doing the actor's job.
Mhm.
What do you need from your director in order for you to do your actor's job? You answer those questions, you've just made yourself a better director.
Right.
Because now you have a better understanding of what the actor you're going to be talking to is going to want from you.
I think
And
that's right.
there's a lot of directors, I'm not going to bring up any names, but there's a lot of them that will not, they challenge that every time. They challenge, no, I can't do that, I can't do that. If you're going to be a good director, you have to do it.
I think it's important that you do it. I think it's important also that you take some sort of class. Personally, I think some sort of psychology class would benefit most directors, because I think it's important to understand the basic human communication skills, and I mean pre-language skills.
Well,
Physical
body language. I mean, I was just doing that a couple weeks ago with the new film that I'm working on, Nature of the Beast. I was studying body language. You know, when you do this, you know.
As an acting teacher, and I've done it, and I've been teaching for years and years. One of the things I tell my actors, wherever they are, is that your body speaks to the camera and to the audience as much as any dialogue. And sometimes if your body, if your body movements and your reactions can be at variance with what's coming out of your mouth, an audience may not understand exactly what's going on there, but they'll know that they're uncomfortable with it, and it's not really
Something's not
true.
right.
It's not
Exactly.
right.
We've said it a billion times in our classes, to do nothing is one of the hardest things in acting to do. To not have a dialogue, to sit there and be in a conversation and you're watching the conversation, you're reacting to what the people are saying within the conversation, even though that you don't have any lines in that. But the body motions, the body movements, the hand gestures, the facial gestures that you have is
They all
just
have to be,
important.
You have to still be as engaged in that conversation
Absolutely.
as if you had dialogue.
Yes.
And it is difficult. It's difficult for actors to do that and understand. They think that just if you're saying dialogue, that's everything, and it's not.
Yeah, a lot
In
of
fact,
people just think if they're not speaking,
Yeah.
they just need to stop.
Well,
And that
I think one of the
usually-
things you need to tell them is that This isn't stage where it's all words.
Exactly.
It's
That's
images.
what we do.
You're telling the
yes.
story in images mixed with some dialogue, okay? And the images are really what help tell the story. And if you're not utilizing, if you're not using the images correctly, or if the actors are not reacting properly, it can take away from the scene.
Well, the difference, what we tell a lot of people, the difference between stage and film is that camera is going to catch
Everything.
everything. If you're not being natural, the camera is going to
Camera
catch
doesn't
that.
lie.
No.
It doesn't lie, and there is a difference between on-camera acting techniques and stage techniques. Everything on stage has to be much larger. Your voice has to be projected much further because you have people,
90 feet away.
90,
100 feet away.
whatever distance away, who are not going to be able to, tell every time you flick your eye,
Yeah.
or even stage asides, sotto voce, hey, it's got to be loud, for the audience to catch it, right? And whereas in film, you're mic'd, camera's right here, a flick of an eye can tell everything.
Absolutely.
It's just a
And it's
different medium,
very easy
and it
to
requires different
overdo.
acting skills and techniques.
And it is very easy to overdo something on camera. And
If you're a stage trained actor, that's
And
exactly
you-
right.
you
My
run
first
the
film
risk
I
of
ever
becoming
did, I
camp.
watched it. My first film I ever did, I watched myself and I wanted to shoot myself after because I was doing everything way over the top.
Well-
And the director didn't tell me. Here's the scene. We had, it was a lower budget. It was done in New York, and it was, oh my God! I looked at myself and I said, "Wow, that's really bad. That's really bad." Nobody told me. I had.
that's the
I'd only
importance of
had at
seeing
that time.
yourself,
I'd
too.
only had one on-camera acting class in New York, and it wasn't enough. And I'd only been taking for 3 or 4 weeks, and in advance of getting ready for this film, it wasn't enough. I wasn't ready, and I found out the hard way. And the director said nothing. The other actor, I wouldn't even work. I was working with musicians.
Right.
I was working. It was one of the first rap films ever.
Well, a lot of people always say, William Shatner, for instance, because he's the go-to. His acting style is so almost camp and over the top. And they're right, because he is a Shakespearean stage-trained actor who came out of the late 50s, early 60s camp. I saw a clip of him on stage.
He's very powerful.
It is an incredibly different thing to see
Yeah.
William Shatner perform on stage, because he is actually a fine Shakespearean actor.
I'll give you a movie to watch if you
Get on
want to.
camera.
Yeah, he that campy thing really developed in the original Star
In Star
Trek.
Trek.
There were some things he did afterward, like the Andersonville trial, where by this time he'd become so well known that the rhythm that he used in his voice, is
Kind of like with Christopher Walken.
Yeah,
where
yeah,
there's
yeah,
that
yeah.
particular
And so we were
parameter.
used to that. But if you one of his earlier films, and it's a tremendous film, Judgment at Nuremberg with Spencer Tracy. He has a small role in that as a colonel, an officer that helps. And there's a lot of fine actors. It's about the Nazi war criminal trials after World War II, and it's a wonderful film. But he has a small role in that, and it's a pretty good little role. And he's completely different in movement, speech.
Well, even
and-
in Twilight Zone.
oh yeah, I remember his
and,
Twilight Zone. Yeah, that was.
As 10,000 feet, Terror at 10,000 feet, and then I can't remember the name of the other episode. Matt's outdoors right now, and he would smack me for forgetting this.
Yeah, I know what you're
But
talking
the one
about.
where he
though.
goes into the diner and keeps putting the pennies in.
Right,
to
right,
get
right.
the
I remember that
fortune.
one.
Those weren't as over the top,
Okay, and here's why.
and it was right
Now let's
before
get
Star
let's
Trek.
get to why. One of the things, in my estimation, one of the things that I think that a lot of young actors or new actors, regardless of their age, one of the issues that they have is they don't have a lot of confidence or enough training when they first go on camera. They got a good look, maybe they got good talent, but they're not quite as confident. Okay, so you lay back a little. If you look back, I watched an early Steve McQueen film from 1951 or 2. I forget what it was recently. He was completely different than he was 15 years later.
Just hadn't grown into himself.
He hadn't grown into himself, and he didn't have the confidence. Once you develop that confidence, and if you almost any actor you've ever seen early on in their career, with a few exceptions, of course, but the exception proves the rule. If you look at their early work and then what they developed into, it's basically a function of confidence and experience that has then
Built
created that person that they are now. John Wayne is an early example.
I'd
Well,
love
it's-
I'd love to look back and see some early Christopher Walken and see just exactly when does the dump all punctuation and create his own delivery. When does that actually
Well,
really
the first
start?
film that brought him to prominence, he does a little bit. He plays his weird self, but Annie, when he plays, if you remember him in Woody Allen.
I'm not a Woody Allen fan.
I'm
by
a
no
big
means.
Woody Allen fan. It was with Diane Keaton, Woody Allen, Annie Hall. Annie Hall. He played when they went home because Woody Allen played the little Jewish nebbish guy, and then he had the tall Shiksa girl, Diane
Now,
Keaton.
even within, was it the King of New York?
That was later. That he was there, that was who he was then. He was there.
Yeah.
But I'm talking about this film. He still played a weird guy. Like
he's always been a little.
Yeah, nobody can
weird.
play weird like him.
Yeah.
But he wasn't the same as he would be a couple of years later.
Well, even
Okay.
in Communion, he wasn't quite.
Well,
That was a different role.
Very different role.
Basically,
And historical.
when you see Christopher Walken, he's going to give you. A King of New York is one of my favorite Christopher Walken.
That's a great
and
role.
the other
Yeah,
movie,
that's-
and the other movie where he's with he plays a mob guy, and the young guy's
True
kidnapped.
Romance.
True Romance.
No,
yeah.
no.
Oh, the one where they kidnap him.
They kidnap him.
Oh, I know. He's the mob boss.
Yeah,
and
he's
all
the
the
mob
rich
boss.
kids
Yeah, and they
can't
tie
have
him to a chair.
Yeah.
Oh God, it's
But what was the name of the movie that he was in? I just recently watched it. It was the all black and white. Oh my God, why can I remember
Oh,
that?
The Addiction.
The Addiction.
Oh, The Addiction.
He
Brilliant.
was
Love that film.
completely
different.
Completely different. I was like,
right.
Christopher.
Yeah, it was.
Yeah.
It was a very non-Walken like role.
It was, and he took it for that reason, I'm sure.
Yeah.
So but I mean, when you hire Christopher Walken, you know what you're getting.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And this is something for actors to remember. When you get hired, and you've got a good rep, right?
Mhm.
We doing good on time?
Yeah. I'm
Yeah,
just
yeah, we're
making
good.
sure we're
Yeah.
not running.
So they when you get hired, they're going to remember you, and they're going to remember you, and if they like what you did, there's a good chance, work begets work. The more,
Exactly.
like I told,
That's
Keith,
Mr.
exactly.
Keith,
Yeah.
I said the more you're on working sets. When you talk to agents or cats, they said, "Well, what you did? Oh, you were on that lately." And if you've been on 3 or 4 in a row within 5 or 6, 8 weeks, 2 month, 3 month period, that must mean somebody likes you, and they're going to want to hire you for that
And that's
reason.
exactly the conversation that I had with him. His big thing is my face is not going to be seen. That doesn't
Doesn't
matter for
matter.
that. The
Your name's
professionalism.
on the credits,
Your
baby.
Yeah,
face
that's
isn't
it.
seen on the camera. That doesn't
The
matter.
professionalism that you'll have, the way that you approach things professionally. I said, don't go to the director number one for anything.
I told him.
I told him,
Which is a
anytime that you want to say anything to the actor, unless you're there working with the actor on a scene that you have to do with him that close, always go to the second AD. He has started building a relationship now
If
with
you
the
have a
actor.
creative issue,
Yes, exactly.
go to the first AD, who is the right hand person
To
for
the
the director. If the director's busy, go to the first AD, suggest to him. If the first AD's busy, then what you want to do is go to the script continuity person. The script
But
supervisor.
I told him, I said, there's a chain of command, just
There
like
is.
there is in
Just
everything.
like the military. And
There's
he's a police
chain-
officer, so he
Yeah,
should understand
he's a
that.
police officer, so he'll know. And one of the biggest things that the lead character in the pilot was laying on the grass tanning. And he said something to Keith about doing it, and I had hung up the phone, and I had remembered that part of the conversation. And I was like, and I called him back. I said, tomorrow, you want to know what you need to do tomorrow? And he's like, what's that? I was like, you need to find a tanning salon. I was like, because he's going to be tanned, you're not tan. I was like, you've got to look at those things because it's set in the Vietnam era.
I think that that's probably not that important because one of the reasons he's there is to be a stand-in for when they're doing the lighting.
Yeah.
So that the actor doesn't get hot, sweaty, his makeup, and he compares himself. And the tanning isn't going to change very much the skin tone issues when they measure the light distance and all. So I mean I get your point, but that's probably not necessary. to do
Well,
that.
the actor had said something.
Yeah.
Oh,
It
the
said
actors,
something
well,
to
that's
him.
another,
Lead
that's
actor
another,
said
Yeah,
no,
the lead
that's another, that's
And I
something-
told him, I said, anytime,
that's something else again.
if
Yeah.
the lead actor speaks to you, jump.
Yeah.
Because that's the man you have to double. I said, if he's not speaking to you, stay your distance and observe. Because you have to double him. Watch his movements. Watch how he reacts to things. Watch how he sits. Watch how he walks.
Yeah,
all that kind of stuff.
And I know that sort of thing. I know that would make a lot of people down here very uncomfortable.
He was very
does.
nervous.
Because
Yeah.
because everybody here is
But
used to being a
that's
little bit more loosey goosey.
That's
But
the job.
it is the job. There's
And
a
even
certain,
if the tanning is unnecessary,
right.
if he does it and they see his dedication, that could just make a statement.
Absolutely.
That's fine.
It shows the
I
professionalism.
still would probably ask the second agent before I go do that.
Right.
I would.
I think it's a good
You
idea
know,
to always.
I personally would,
always
but that's
check with
that's
him,
just
but-
me. Yeah, I mean, these are. It's if you don't know the answer, don't guess. Ask somebody.
Yeah.
Because if you guess and it's wrong, it reflects poorly on
And
you.
that will be
and it
remembered.
reflects poorly to the degree that it might hurt future employment.
Let's spin this all back around
To
you now in Memphis as a filmmaker. I know you have a project that you've written.
Written a number of them.
Bulletproof Heart.
Bulletproof Heart.
You've cast mostly with people you've been working with, so you know what you're getting, which allowed you to some degree, be able to write to their strengths.
Which is what I actually did.
Which, having read all but the last episode so far, I can see as I read through it, knowing who you've put in each role, I actually see it, and it makes sense to me. I love the flow of it.
Yeah, it's,
I can't wait to see.
Oh, you've read
Darius.
it?
yeah, I've read it.
Yeah,
Yeah.
we're waiting to get it back from you so he can read it. Actually.
Oh, okay.
Um,
Well, it's going to be a minute. It's packed.
oh, okay. I love Darius. Darius is one of my favorite actors in town. Well,
Darius
I
Newsom.
I
Yes.
say in town. Of course, he comes from Arkansas, about 45 minutes to an hour away every time he's here,
Yeah.
which is just another thing that Darius shows is that dedication, because he will travel that distance.
He wants to be professional. He wants to learn. He's been studying with me for 3 years. He's made great strides since when he first came to me. He wants to be in this business. He does have some personal issues that he has to address before he moves away from Memphis, but he does want to do that. He's good enough to do it.
I agree. I definitely think
No
he's
question.
good enough to do. I've worked
He's
with him
good enough.
several times, and I love Darius. And then also, I'm hoping that you're still writing, or will be writing. Now I've forgotten the current name that you were using.
I'm
for it.
changing that name. What do we call it? The Vine? Something that
Rotting on the Vine, or
yeah, rotting
something
on
like
the
that.
dying on the
Dying
vine.
on the Vine.
I actually have pretty much finished that.
And that I look forward to, and we can talk about Bulletproof Heart more, just because that's.
Well, we're going to
moving
get a chance
forward.
to act
But
together in this.
I'm very excited for presently, I guess, Dying on the Vine, because this will be an opportunity for you and I to actually not only share screen time, which we did in the Conversion
Briefly.
Corduroy Wednesdays picture, which we have a clip which we'll show here
Oh,
in
really?
just a
I haven't
second.
seen it. I don't know if I've ever seen it.
But it will be a chance for you and I to actually sit at a table and act with each other. And
I agree.
really
I'm looking
look
forward
forward
to it.
that.
I
Because
absolutely
I
have.
don't think as an actor I've really been challenged in a scene in anything I've done.
This one will.
Mike
I'm just-
McCarthy's film
yeah.
was a great film, Cigarette Girl. I loved it. But I
You
don't
did a nice
really,
job in it, too.
But I don't really think any of the scenes or individuals in the scenes really created a challenge as an actor. And I don't think the story itself lended
It wasn't written that way. It was a different
But
kind
the
of
way
book.
that this one is
But what
written,
you're
it
writing-
is, I mean, from what we have discussed over the years.
It's an actor's tour de force.
It is.
It really is. I
And
wrote it specifically for that purpose, as Bulletproof Heart, same
Yes.
thing.
Let's go ahead and take a look at the Conversion
Okay.
clip real quick, and when we come back, we'll discuss Bulletproof Heart and maybe a little bit of the Dying on the Vine.
Okay.
Mary, any chance of bringing back TV? As swords and arrows gave in to muskets and cannons, and those as well to rifles and missiles, one wonders how tiny computer chips and little ones and zeros floating in the sky could ever have the possibility to topple civilizations. We have witnessed a dark time, a time when the American spirit was disabled to benefit the cause of a few, a time when evil no longer used a weapon of pain and death, but one of convenience and entertainment. This time, they did not command armies across oceans, nor did they point weapons of mass destruction at the other side. They simply put a blindfold over everyone and went about their way as we stumbled along looking for answers. We've made the glowing box that sits in our living room a staple in our life. We adopted it as a family member, the one who would do all the talking but never listen.
Tell you what, as an evangelist, it's been years since I've been in a tent revival like this. I don't know what I'm doing here, but I'm going to talk to you today about the first church of the Holy Smoke. Oh, yeah.
Try my favorite brand, Strikers. A cigarette for folks who just don't give a damn anymore.
I'm a fella with a heart of gold, with the ways of a gentleman, I've been told, the kind of a fella that wouldn't even harm a flea. But if me and a certain character met, that guy that invented the cigarette,
When I was a teenager, it was an accepted part of the culture. And now it's 2035 and smoking has become a liability and a privilege. Frankly, I never thought I'd see attitudes against smoking that are so fascistic.
Stay out of my way, I'll run you over.
There's rules in the smoking section.
Nobody owns me.
You're still quiet.
3 days now.
Not easy, is it?
Not when they're hanging around your neck.
What do you know about this girl selling cigarettes on the street?
Cigarette girl. What do you need to know about her?
I'm talking to you!
If this girl gets caught selling cigarettes on the street, it could be really bad for our operation.
Put your gun on the counter.
Well, I'm afraid we can't do that because...
The cigarette girl? Come on!
I'm turning into some pistol-packing mama now.
Arthur! You need to go the fuck home! I can't smoke at home!
I'm about to show you what that shit feels like.
There are no cops in the smoking section.
I'll kill you! So, there's more to this than just selling cigarettes.
All right, welcome back. We took a quick look at the conversion and a couple of local film trailers for things that are going on in our neighborhood with some of our local filmmakers. We'll come back down here. I do want to mention that you have a story that was printed in the Delta Blues book.
It's an anthology.
Which is an anthology book. How does it say? An outstanding collections of short stories from writers aching to sing the blues. And included in this book, of course, we have John Grisham, another
He's got a really,
area writer.
Most of the writers are from the South, with the exception of myself and Nathan Singer.
Okay. And then I noticed there's a few names I actually recognized in here. Ace Atkins, I've lost sight.
Charlene Harris.
James Lee Burke. Charlene Harris, who of course wrote the books that are now being adapted as the True Blood series.
Mm-hmm.
So there's a lot of impressive writers to have
You know,
your
there really
name
are.
next
Morgan
to.
Freeman wrote the foreword.
And then, you're right.
You know, and let me tell you, it was a thrill to be, I've been published in other anthologies, and I've been published in, 25, 30 magazines over the years, my articles and my writing. I'm proudest of this because of the caliber of writers that are in this collection.
It really does put you next to a lot of names.
Right, and also the caliber of the writing is just fantastic. There's not a bummer story in there. Mine was called Kid Diamond.
I was going to mention that yours is, of course, Kid Diamond, which you have adapted into a stage play.
A stage play musical, the original
with the
story.
intention of going towards a feature film as well.
Down the road, but it's basically a modern retelling of the Crossroads tale, where Robert Johnson Robert Johnson goes across somewhere south of Rosedale, in the middle of the Delta in Mississippi, meets the devil at midnight. Come to him as an elderly black man, and the devil tunes his guitar, hands it back, and says, "You're gonna be a star now, boy." And of course, it's legend.
Right.
And I created a whole new version of it, an updated version. And I originally wrote the story, and then when I started writing the play about 3-4 years ago, I had already known and was working with Travis Stone. For those of you who don't know Travis is a incredibly talented actor and guitarist. A lot of people don't know that he is an incredible guitarist, and it turns out he's a very good composer. And so we decided to write a bluesical, and we created blues and gospel and hard blues and modern blues, rock, telling the story of Kid Diamond, a former 70s era guitar rock god.
Kind of a Jimi Hendrix in his day.
Yeah, Jimi Hendrix meets Stevie Ray Vaughan, and who had a couple of hits after playing years in the mid and late 60s on the Chitlin circuit, in throughout the South, and then has a big hit, and then drugs, too many women, too many drugs, too much rock and roll. Lifestyle, and he actually deals with the devil, and that's what supposedly made him a star. The way I tell the story, it turns out not that way, but I'm not gonna.
Well, we don't want to let too much
out. No,
out.
I don't know too much out.
I know when I met you several years back, this was a project you were currently writing and shopping out.
It's been 5 years ago we met.
I think when we met, you actually knew it was going to be published as a part of this, but
it hadn't been published yet.
Hadn't been published yet.
Right, it was published in 2000.
But I remember talking about the story, and of course, the Crossroads tale being such a classic tale. They attempted in the 80s, I think they called it Crossroads.
It was the Ralph Macchio.
And Steve Vai as the...
Steve Vai playing the devil's guitarist.
Yeah, it was Steve Vai. I don't know why I wanted to say Joe Satriani, but it was Steve.
But the other guitar player, that Macchio, it was...
Joe Satriani?
No. I know Joe, but it was... oh my goodness, Ry Cooder.
I was going to say, it was Ry Cooder.
In fact, Ry Cooder wrote
the
film score, did the soundtrack
yeah.
for it. It was Ry Cooder, who's a serious guitar player.
Who's also an amazing
Not the Satriani's not, I know Satriani.
Yeah. No, I'd had it twisted for a minute.
I mean, he's no slouch.
Yeah, no, not at all. Not at all.
Satriani's no slouch.
Musical debate aside, bringing it back to Kid Diamond,
right.
Your story, it really is a classic retelling, meaning that it is the classic story, modernized. And it keeps it southern, it keeps it blues. Crossroads, being an 80s film, kind of had to open itself up to a bigger market, so it really played kind of shiny and polished.
They took some liberties.
Kid Diamond is not polished in that respect. It's a very gritty, real
more
story.
Raw.
And, dealing with his time in the Chitlin circuit, dealing with what it was like to be a big musician through the 70s era and to have lost all of that and to now be facing imminent mortality. I think it's an incredible story. I think it's a poignant story, a fantastic time in history for that story to come back and be retold. So I hope with all of my heart that one will see the light of day, because I really want to see that myself.
Well, it will. I actually had the production cast and was in rehearsal, and then there was some issues. There was some business issues that arose, and so I shut the production down. Now I'm searching for a new producer and looking for new investment, because this show has, in my not only just my estimation, other people's, they think it can go all the way to Broadway.
Well, I was going to say, you've recently seen the success of Memphis on Broadway.
Mm-hmm.
You have an incredible story. I've heard some of the music from it. You're going to have an amazing soundtrack. You have all of the elements needed.
Hope so.
From what I've heard, it really
Yeah,
holds up.
it
I
does.
really think. I mean, you're not wrong.
Yeah.
Travis is really good at what he does.
Mm-hmm.
And then as an actor, also you have Travis. I really think you have.
It has
2
everything
for 2 right there.
It has the stages that we have seen. It has everything that it needs to have to make it. Just now getting.
Well, we hope that that's the case, because it is a really amazing project, and
But timing, I mean, like I said, Memphis is huge on Broadway. Nashville is huge
Well, there's
on
actually
TV.
more. I mean,
people are looking.
The Mountaintop was on one Tony's, and the writer is from Memphis. A
That's
female.
yeah.
It's a gospel musical, The Mountaintop, and then of course there was there's a third musical based on Memphis, and that was the $1 Million Quartet.
Didn't know about that one.
Yeah, the $1 Million Quartet won awards. It's about the $1 Million Quartet was Carl Perkins, Elvis, Jerry Lee Lewis.
John.
Yeah, Jerry Lee. What'd I say? Lewis?
Yeah,
Jerry Lee Lewis.
Oh, it is. That
Yeah.
is Jerry Lee Lewis. Okay, I was saying Jerry Lewis. Jerry Lee Lewis, and of course Johnny Cash, the $1 Million Quartet that recorded at Sun Studios.
Right.
You know, with Sam Phillips, and that's what that was based on.
Okay.
All three were Memphis-oriented musicals, and all three won a number of Tony Awards. Okay, they won a number of Tony Awards for those productions. So this is right in line.
I was going to say, this is
with
perfectly
that
timed.
content.
It is definitely a Southern tale.
True.
I really think that it deserves to be out there, and I really hope you'll find the support.
Well, as I used to say, from your lips to God's ears, lad.
I want to go off on a quick tangent right quick because we kind of got off the subject
Okay.
a while ago. When I made the comment about Daniel Martine being this rough and gruff kind of person, I didn't get to finish my tangent on that, and I don't want everybody to think something otherwise. I think the reason that you come off like that, or people say that you come off like that, is because that you have such a passion for what you're trying to teach. I know myself. When I first met the statue of Daniel Martine, that's what I thought.
The statue?
This
Stature.
huge stature of what a lot of people perceive you to be.
Mm-hmm.
But once I got to know you, and once I'd come to your class once or twice, and then I could see, because of the passion that you have, that you're trying to teach. I mean, you're a very approachable person. You're very,
I think so.
You're somebody that you can talk to. I just didn't want the people that are viewing to think that we were trying to say something bad about you, where I wasn't trying to say something bad about you. I was trying to say the passion that you have for who you are wanting to, the people that you're trying to teach what they're wanting to do, and that you have the best intentions for the people that
It comes down to exactly what it is we have and what we're looking for in
Yes.
people, and that is absolute passion for what it is you do. And if people perceive that as gruff or intense or whatever else they might
Then
perceive it as, then so be it. But that's what it takes to do it.
There is no question that I am an intense person. I'm big. I have a big voice. I know that I intimidate some people. I get that, and there's also a space issue. I've noticed here that when I speak with people, if I get too close to them, they move back because they don't want me in their space. I spent so many years in New York City.
I was going to say, you don't have space.
I mean, you're from the East Coast. You're from the East Coast. I mean, I grew up in New York. I mean, I spent so many years in New York City, and there's no room. I mean, people are like, they're walking on sidewalks like this. We're on subways, we're on buses, we're in little cafes, and we're shoulder to shoulder. I mean, no joke. People sit down, if you're in not a good restaurant, but a small cafe or a coffee place, or whatever, and there's room at your table, and people, may we sit here because there's no room, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. And I've really met some really great people that way, really cool people. And there's just no room. And so it's more crowded, and you're cheek by jowl to other people, and and I'm Latino plus, and I talk to people, put my, hey, how you doing? It makes some people uncomfortable, and it took me a while. I was really, my feelings were really hurt a lot the first few years I was down south, because I mean, I'm a very friendly guy. I know I'm big. I can be occasionally gruff. I have that New York thing going. I get it. But I mean, I'm a very nice person. But yet, it did hurt my feelings when, in the beginning, and I tried to respect their space, but there were a lot of people down here won't say anything to you.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay, so I don't know. We're in New York. Hey, buddy, what the hell's going on here? Get out of my face. You know what I'm talking about?
Back up. People are more
here. They
blunt.
won't do that.
Yeah, they're more
Instead,
blunt.
they won't deal with you.
Yeah,
and you're left wondering, what did I do?
What did you do?
Well, I have to say, me and you have gotten to know each other over the last couple of months. Dan, in my opinion, are one of the best acting coaches in this town. We always refer people to go to you,
and I appreciate that.
And because you are one of the better acting coaches in this town, and for people that want to take this as not a hobby, but to fulfill the passion that they have, they need to go and see you. That's my tangent. I just wanted to clear that up.
Well, I appreciate that. I really
clear
do.
that up.
I'll give you $20 later.
He's right though. We've told. I mean, we run our own class, and we've told every student we have, go see him. Because you can't learn everything from one coach.
No, I didn't.
You need,
I
you
certainly
need different
didn't.
experiences,
Right.
just as much as you need to work with different
Absolutely.
directors.
It's impossible to do that. And I've been with students that I finally told, you know what, there's nothing more I can teach you. You need to go to somewhere else and teach them. And I have over the years, I've told that there are about 7 or 8 people.
Well, I can say that
Nobody here yet, but
we've had a lot. We know a lot of people, a lot of actors in common, and I'm not gonna mention his name on here because I'm not gonna do that. But you took one person that was like this all the time. You know who I'm talking about.
He will in a minute.
Very out there, always
locked in his own mannerism.
He went from one class to another. I'll say his first name, Marcus.
Oh yeah.
He went from one class to where every time that I seen him at this one class, I was like, he's pulling a Marcus.
We knew exactly what we were getting in every scene he was in.
And he actually came and auditioned for the film Nature of the Beast when we were doing some auditionings for Nature of the Beast.
After having been in your class.
After being in your
You've
class.
been in my class over 2 years.
And when he came in, I was like, we're gonna get this style again.
You get Marcus.
I was gonna get Marcus, and when he came in and he sat down and I've got the video still, and he sat down and he did it.
I'd like to watch that.
And I was like, when he walked out of the room and shut the door, we kind of looked at each other, and I was like, who was that masked man that just walked out of here? Because he had made so much more after being at your classes. He had made so much more leaps and bounds. I was like, oh.
Okay, to be fair about that, since it's Marcus Santi we're talking about, and this is positive what we're talking about. So Marcus, we're mentioning you. Marcus, when he first came to me, I cast him in the first Fuel film thing. It was as a vampire. It was the first Fuel film that we ever did here, and it was called Welcome to Cafe Colando. And that's all he had to say. It was his face out there. I hired him because he was bald. Sunder had a fantastic look, and I thought he's bound to be it. So I said, "Welcome to Cafe Colando." Right? Just do that. Do it. So one line is all he had to say. He couldn't do it. I asked him to do it 5 different ways, 6 different. He couldn't do it. So finally, I just used his face, and I did the voiceover.
The ADR?
The ADR on it, and it was great. And I said, you have such a great look. And then I saw a couple things that he was in that he did with Catherine Mitchell, and where he played a gay guy. It was hilarious, because he is funny. And I said, there's more to you, so come start working.
That was our issue.
Yeah, that was our issue.
There's more. Yeah,
always.
But he was locked.
Yeah, he was locked.
He was
so I said,
deadlocked.
let's find the new you. And yes, I did help him do that. But he did 50% of the work because he actually went and worked at home on his own to get better. And a lot of actors don't do that. Marcus worked his butt off.
And
with my direction, but he did the work. And so I have to tip my hat to him, because that Marcus you saw in that audition is a product really of his work. The work.
It is a product of his work.
I put him on the path, but he had to finally do the work.
I definitely credit you with helping him find the path or the need to do the work, because he is a very funny person. You put him in a scene, you're going to get some funny stuff. But he was really locked in that.
Yeah.
And then he did another project where he wasn't really given direction. He was allowed to just be himself.
Right.
Which made him now, on screen, comfortable just being him.
Yeah.
Which means the next director to work with him has twice the job. And I was looking at possibly working with him after that at some point. So, as a potential, relationship built there, I was extremely grateful to see that it wasn't me. Oh well, it was you. Someone had done or said the right thing at the right time in the right place and helped Marcus find a path.
Marcus came to me. He was open enough. We did privates as well as just regular guy. He came and says, "I want to be better," and I said, "Well, here's what you have to do: ABC to get better, and let's start working on it." And I guided him, and when he was working with me privately, it was great. But still, he had to go do the work himself, and he did. And the result is he got better, and he continues. Now he's in Dallas, and he's taking class with people there, and he's taking class with different people, and he's doing different things because he understands that he needs to be an actor that's able to do more roles.
Well, you definitely put him on a better path than what he had before, because that was a night and day change from when he came and did that audition for us. That was we had to turn around and go back and look at the footage again, because I was like, I think I was dreaming. You know,
that's what he's doing.
And I would have loved to use him, but his age is the reason why I didn't initially use him for the role, but I was giving him that opportunity to audition for it. And there was only one other person that ever did the role the
even
way
halfway.
Even halfway, and that was Christian Walker, who I'm we're in talks with him and another person that are going to audition again for the role.
Yeah,
he's got two people that are going to audition for the role. So, but kudos to you on that one. I mean, really.
Well, like I said, he had to do the work himself really to get there.
Well, ultimately,
but every actor does. I mean, the teachers are there to guide you, to help you, to let you know what you're doing and what you could be doing better, and to push you, right? You know, but ultimately the work has to be done by the actor.
Absolutely,
you know, they have to.
And you said the key word, and that was work.
It's not an easy. It's not an easy gig. People, and one of the, if I might say this, I don't know how much time we have left, but if I might say this, one of the most difficult things an actor does. That's why going to acting class is really a form of therapy. But one of the most difficult things an actor has to do is to strip him or herself emotionally down to the bone. I mean, you have to not be afraid to put yourself out there and be almost like naked in front of an audience. You need to show them your vulnerability.
Absolutely.
Because an audience will connect with vulnerability.
They've got to be let in.
There's
nothing to hold on to.
I remember watching Meryl Streep in many of her earliest performances. After she did The Deer Hunter, which I thought was a great job by
One
her.
of my favorite movies.
She did 5 or 6, 7 movies in a row where I saw her technique on display. She picked roles where she was doing accents, and she's a method actress. Okay, I had one of her teachers, and for 4, 5, 6, 7 films in a row, all I kept seeing was her technique on display. She wasn't moving me emotionally, and if the actor does not move an audience emotionally, they're just not going to get into the film. And to do that, you have to
wash it away.
You have to
you have to put it all out there naked, like a newborn infant, for them to respond to you.
All right. So as we get towards the end here, we'll have to have you back another time to talk a little bit more about some of the other things we alluded to. But who are, just real quick, 1 or 2 names, actor, actress, that you think really in the mainstream really stand out, that they're doing good work, that is the consummate actor? Good example for our local to look at.
Well, for film, which is since you're not going to be able to see stage actors, for film, I have to say one name above all, and that's Jack Nicholson. And here's why. Jack Nicholson never had any real training as a stage actor, but he has natural gifts. And if you look at any of his films, and if you look at As Good as It Gets, if you look at 5 Easy Pieces and everything in between, The King of Marvin Gardens, Departed, all kinds of different films. He can do comedy, he does drama, and no one performance that Jack gave, Prizzi's Honor, I mean, whether you like the movie or not, he gave an incredibly different performance than he's used to giving. Every time you see a Jack Nicholson performance, you're seeing a completely different character speaking with a different voice, and I don't mean just the voice, I mean with the character's voice.
Intonation, everything.
Right, yeah. I mean, every time you see Nicholson, you're going to see a completely different, side of him.
Okay.
That you may never have, he has range that very few actors have. Some people say, De Niro, Pacino, great stuff. Hackman, I love them all. All method actors. And after a while, you start repeating yourself. Mm-hmm. But Nicholson has the ability in most of his films to be something completely other than what you may think Jack is. Yeah, there's still that Jack thing that comes through.
Well, there's always going to be.
And that's part of what makes him so popular.
Now, who would that be as far as a female actress?
That's a lot more difficult, because there's a lot of female actors that are very good, but they don't stand. I mean, wow, who would I say? There's so many that are very, 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 very good.
I I really think like someone like Natalie Portman is the only one that's showing
No,
staying power. But I don't know if
Natalie's.
I'd put her
I
on
love.
that
Don't get me wrong. I
list.
love Natalie Portman, but she does a lot of the same stuff.
That's what I'm saying. I don't know if I'd put her
She
on
does.
that
I mean, I
list.
love her. Don't get me wrong. I love her to pieces. I'm going to say an older actress, English actress. Well, there's two: Judi Dench, Dame Judi Dench,
Nice.
and Helen Mirren. When you look at their body of work, and I've been watching Helen Mirren since she was practically naked with that movie, James Mason, 1969-70. You know the movie, Matt? I'm pointing to Matt. You ever seen this movie? It's a weird movie. It takes place in Australia.
Have we stumped Matt?
Yeah, because that 60s time period for Helen, I'm not as clear.
Okay. Anyway, I mean, she was a babe. And another movie she did called If with Malcolm McDowell after his success after Clockwork Orange. And all her work since then, she's able to do that exact same thing. And even in her modern movie Red, and that movie Red 2, I mean, that's a completely different character for her. And she comes from the Royal Shakespearean background.
And you could see that.
The English actors,
the
English actors work from the outside in, not the inside out.
Right.
Okay. Now, local, who would you say are some of your...
Man.
I know. We'll
Really
change
puts
it
you
up
on
a
the
little
spot.
bit. We'll take it away from actors. Who in town do you think are some of the directors to watch? Or possibly even someone you yourself would really like the chance to work with in town?
Well, I would have to say you are one, and especially if you can get yourself back to the incredible creativity that I know I never
Morning
knew.
Ritual?
Morning Ritual. That's one of the most brilliant short films I've seen in my life.
Thank you.
Okay, if you get back to that, and plus I love working with you. You're one. I would have to say, I don't know enough of these young guys anymore. I think you're talking about directors.
Yeah.
Wow. I think I'm gonna have to take a pass on that.
Oh no.
Yeah. You know,
Wow.
even Daniel Martine occasionally, gets political.
All right, we'll back it up and say a local film you've seen that you think stood out, other than Morning Ritual, something more recent.
I liked Rain Remembered.
Fantastic film with David Tankersley and
Hey
Haley.
Rain Remember, I thought was a very well realized film for no budget.
I agree.
And among the very best films that I've seen from, and that's right off the top of my head. If I had another 10 minutes, I'd give you several more. But that's one that's
I wanted to know what would be the one that would just float to the top.
That
real
one
quick.
floated to the top for me.
That's a really
That's a
good
good move.
example
That's
because
good.
two of my favorite people are in there.
Yeah.
I absolutely love David Tankersley.
Yeah.
I've known him for a decade plus, and he's one of my favorite people in general. And then, of course, Haley Parker. Honestly, I think he's probably one of the most gifted actors in our
She's
city.
very gifted.
Yeah,
I've worked with her a couple
her
times,
sister.
and
And her
she's
sister.
wonderful, and she has a career in front of her if she's able to get out of Memphis.
Keep it pursued. Yeah, unfortunately.
I mean, it's not going to happen for her here.
All right, well, we're going to close out the show with a slight special here. We've got Darrington Reap, DJ Reap, a local photographer, a gentleman I've known for several years. He's going to have
How's
a
it
seat
going,
here
guys?
on the couch. How are you, Darrington?
Good to see you again.
Darrington, pleasure to meet you, my brother. Have a seat.
You're going to sit down, and he's going to play us out with, what's the track?
Let Me Be Your Little Nerd Boy.
Let Me Be Your Little Nerd Boy.
It's a comedy song about a guy who's trying to explain to a girl how he feels. And he can only do it through what he knows, which is pop culture
Nerd
of the
culture,
day. So
excellent.
nerd culture.
All right, well, here we go. Darrington J. Reap with Let Me Be Your Nerd Boy.
Let me be your little nerd boy. You can play with all of my toys. I'll teach you to play D&D. You can be my final fantasy. I think you changed my world of Warcraft the moment I heard your little dork laugh. We could stay up and watch anime, or I could let you beat me at video games. I've been collecting all the hearts, but now I only want yours. Been collecting all the keys, trying to open all the doors. I'll fight for your love, girl, just give me your sword. But if I need a little strength, could you lend me some of yours? Just climb up on my broom and we'll fly anywhere that you wanna go. If no one's half the battle, then this battle's won, cause I love you so. Promise me one thing, just promise that you'll never let me go. Climb up on my back and ride me like a Yoshi, here we go. Your little nerd boy, you you can play with all of my toys. I'll teach you to play D&D. You can be my final fantasy. I think you changed my World of Warcraft the moment I heard your little dork laugh. We can stay up and watch anime, or I could let you beat me at video games. I've been I wanna be your very best, like no one ever was. To catch you is my real test. To love you is my cause. I love you so much, baby, that I don't think you could ever know. I love you like Godzilla loves to destroy Tokyo. And I feel like it's my call of duty to let you know what you mean to me. And if you ever turn me down, then I'll just have to kidnap you like Bowser.
Geek rap.
Excellent. Darrington Reap, thank you very much. We'll see you next week.